Hello and welcome to the EU Values Network podcast, the European Dialogue. In this episode, we're diving into a topic that affects us all, gender equality and democratic values, and the global pushback against both. We're joined by someone who has her finger on the pulse of these challenges across Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean. In this episode, I'm joined by Magdalena Provis Ramírez, Executive Coordinator of the Observatory on Gender Backlash in Latin America and the Caribbean. The Observatory, which I highly recommend you check out after listening to this podcast episode, was created to track, analyse, and make visible the systematic efforts, sometimes subtle, sometimes aggressive, that seek to roll back decades of progress on women's and LGBTIQ+ rights. From anti-gender ideology campaigns to strategic use of religion in politics, these setbacks are not isolated. They form part of a growing global pattern of opposition to human rights. Through innovative methods like geolocation of policies, media monitoring, and detailed tracking of institutional changes, Magdalena and her team document where and how these threats unfold. Their work not only helps Latin American countries respond more effectively, but it also provides critical lessons for us here in Europe, showing what patterns of backlash look like and how civil society, governments, and international actors can respond in partnership. In this conversation, we hear how the Observatory supports stronger democratic practices and inspires international cooperation, building equal partnerships between Latin America and Europe. We'll also discuss ways that we can connect with the Observatory's work, share its findings, and help strengthen global feminist and democratic networks. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Thank you so much for your time today, Magdalena. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Emily, to have us here. Thank you so much.
So perhaps you can start by explaining why was the Backlash Observatory created and how does it help us understand the global pushback against gender equality and democratic values?
Thank you, Emily. First, thank you for the space and invested in this initiative. This initiative started actually when I was finishing my thesis of my master in gender and public policy in Flaxo, Argentina, in the pre-HEP. So I found that there was some common points during my thesis about how this backlash movement is impacting the different countries over Latin America and the Caribbean. Because my thesis was about seeing how the far right in Chile impact the election for the new constituency process that we were developing in Chile in 2022. So I found some common points and I started to ask myself how this is happening in other countries in Latin America, because in Chile was so strong, was so high the impact that this movement has in the public opinion. And then this conceptualizing of backlash, it was just in English. So then this observatory was created with this need of mapping, with this need of study better, with this need of giving Latin America this perspective and how these reflections need to be done also in Latin America and the Caribbean. We are calling now retrocesos, which can be the word in Spanish for backlash, but this initiative started as with this objective of mapping on how we can help policymakers and how we can help people who is developing policies and people who is studying backlash in Latin America and the Caribbean to understand better. This is why we have this platform of, for example, the publication that are now about backlash. We are developing this initiative. As the Flaxo Argentina and the pre-HEP is a huge program in Latin America and the Caribbean and have a strong opinion, I have a lot of responsibility on how the gender ideas and how the gender theory is developed in Latin America. I, knock the door of pre-HEP and they were so supportive with the initiative, and we are doing it together right now. And this is amazing because with this support and with this like yeah, with this support is how we can raise the voice better and louder, you know?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, huge congratulations for undertaking such an amazing initiative whilst doing your thesis or as part of your thesis. That's incredible. It's a really impressive initiative. And you mentioned there the geolocation mapping that's part of the observatory. And I know that includes media monitoring and policy tracking. How could these methods support or inspire how the EU monitors democracy and human rights in Latin America? And perhaps how could they then help monitor democracy and human rights in Europe?
Yeah, I think first the mapping was because we think that it's necessary to monitoring in real time, kind of. We are not close to do it in real time because we need support and we need more hands to do it. But we are tracking these initiatives on the countries that are happening, and this is important from the communicational perspective to see them on a place, you know, because otherwise we think that these backlash initiatives are isolated when they are not. They are well financed, they are well supported, and they are well strategy putting in the place that they are. So for that reason, it was necessary to see them on a map, and we developed this network of people who is in the countries monitoring the initiative that are happening. And the idea to have them on a map is for having them more pointed, and to in the future have a report or have a report on how these tendencies are happening and how we can add value to the reflection that is happening in Latin America and also in Europe. So for that, I think Europe and some countries on Europe were facing it first. A lot of this movement that was happening. So we have a lot to learn from Europe on how you are facing these initiatives that are against women's rights and LGBT community rights. And I think we can learn from each other so good. And also we, Latin America and the Caribbean, we have a strong feminist movement and civil society movement. So also we have there some lesson learned that can help Europe to face this. So I think it's a win-win situation on how both regions can learn from each other and how in Latin America we are facing it, but also having in mind that this is not an isolated movement. This is a movement that wants women in the traditional role. And there is a lot of literature written about it and how the traditional way that they think that women need to be in the private space, but have and raise the voice on the public arena just for example, to speak about children's rights or to speak about care rights, but not about the thing that for women's are important also, like participating in the public arena, participating in election, participating in public policy making. So this is one of the things that we in a next step, for example, we want to put on a report to add to this discussion that this is happening now, not just in Latin America, but also in all the world.
So, as you've touched on there, I guess it represents visually the reflection that is already happening then in Latin America and the Caribbean and Europe. And the backlash you track, such as anti-gender ideology or the use of religion in politics, it's also appearing in Europe, as you've mentioned. So, what patterns do you see across both regions, and how can your work help the EU respond to those threats?
As I said, for example, in Europe, for being specific in Spain, you face some of the discussion that we are facing it right now in Latin America. For example, the discussions about trans rights, about abortion, we face it this first. We can speak about what at the root of that and why this happened first in Europe. And we in Latin America, sometimes we look up to Europe on a way that you have a lot of theory written about gender and the things somehow happens first there. So as I said, we can speak about what are the main reason for that, but I think, in my opinion, it happened in that way. So I know in Europe there is waves of backlash too. Now you have some prime minister and president that are far right too. The case of Italy, for example, and all the movement in Spain that is against trans women's or trans rights. So we are facing it the same here in Latin America. We have, for example, Argentina. We have, for example, Ecuador and Panama. They are dismantled their women's affair ministries, and also not just because they are dismantled these women affairs ministries, but also the programs that aims to provide women's rights and LGBT community rights in other ministries are being dismantled too. So I think this is something that we are seeing it in this observatory that is interesting to learn more on how that is happening too in Europe, in some countries of Europe. And also all the literature that is created there and all the literature that is created here in Latin America, I think we can analyze deeper how influence each other now, and how we have these opportunities to learn from each other, and then how you face these campaigns. I think this will be so important to see and how important to reflect in the observatory too.
Cooperation between Europe and Latin America is often, unfortunately, one-sided. How can the observatory play its part in building more equal partnerships where both regions can learn and challenge each other? For example, maybe you have previous experience in partnerships with European bodies and organizations, and perhaps you could touch on that and what you've learned from those relationships.
I think the observatory is new right now. So we are trying to develop this connection, and this podcast is, I think, an example of that. And also we are so eager to have more experience like that and to have more discussion, a deeper discussion about this topic. And but I think it's a window of opportunity, because is something that we are wanting to do, but honestly, the observatory is new, so it's something that I think we can project, and we want to receive, for example, more support. This support need to be done not in a colonizing way, and I don't know if I say that, and maybe it's too strong to say, but sometimes when civil society here in Latin America or sometimes this cooperation, one-sided cooperation, it can be a cooperation where the organization need to do the thing as the donor want them to do it. So I think there is a window of opportunity that we have to learn, but from this point of view, like we are different regions, we are regions with different needs, and these need to be addressed when we speak about this cooperation. I think this is a very deep topic. It's a topic that is profound, that is historical topic, but I think the fact that we are having this conversation on how we can connect both regions in a more equal point of view is so important, and I think is beyond is beyond the objective of the observatory. But if the observatory can help to have this conversation, I think it's amazing. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, a real window for opportunity. And yes, 100% agree that it needs to create something on more equal footing with respect of different experiences and different needs. Absolutely. Well, as your work grows, what kind of support from Europe would be most helpful and most respectful on that point? How can we together build feminist democratic partnerships that are strong enough to face today's global threats?
In my point of view, I think we have a window of opportunity, and I am repeating this because I think we need to take advantage that we are organized, and this observatory want to be as a platform to be organized and also to serve as a window where all people who is working on backlash have the opportunity to learn and have the opportunity to read what is written, and has the opportunity to also add some initiatives that they are seeing in their countries that are not reflecting in the map, for example, because we saw that backlash is not just happening at the national level or regional level, is also happening in the local level, in the municipalities, in the little programs, is also happening at that level. So I think in that regard, this is a huge threat then to the democracy, and the democracy need to be taken care of. We sometimes take democracy for granted in our countries or in our societies, but democracy is not for granted. We need to take care of democracy, and for that it's necessary that we act together in both regions to take care of democracy. So, and also, and this is an approach that we have in the observatory when we think and when we are facing these issues about democracy, we believe that there is no democracy without respecting human rights of women and without of respecting LGBT community rights. This can be sound so cliche, but it's also right, because we saw how democracy sometimes is so vulnerable, and because the fact that we have elections don't mean that we have a healthy democracy, because even with elections, even with periodical elections, we have this action from political leaders, presidents, that they are they are governing by decrees, and this is not democracy. So then I think we need, as both regions, to be connected and to learn from each other on how we can face this on a better organizing way, and to learn from each other. And this is why we aims to mapping, we aims to have the information on the same place. So policymakers, researchers, teachers, and everyone who is working on this can have the information on one platform. It's a huge objective. We are so ambitious, but we want to do it to add value to this discussion that is happening, and also to have to have and to add to the campaigns, to the messaging that people is developing in all levels, in local levels and national levels and regional levels. If you have all the information in one platform, it can be easier to develop messages, for example. So this can be so huge, but we want to do it in a way that is easier for those who are developing these strategies to have this information on their hands.
Yes, I love that. Inclusive and engaging communication. I think that's wonderful. And indeed, like the health of democracy that you touched on there, and the prevention of democratic decline it's also a huge part of what the EU Values Network is looking at and pushing that kind of research as well. So really lovely. So finally, Magdalena, how can people stay connected with the Backlash Observatory and follow its work? It's very ambitious work, as you've told us about today. Where can listeners head to learn more, or get involved even, or share the observatory's findings with their own communities?
We have our webpage that is observatory.prehab.org. And we have there a part that people can link, and they can put initiatives on the map, for example. There we have our email, and also we have our contacts, Blas, me, Marisa, and we will love to hear more from people who is listening to this podcast on how we can connect and how we can learn and how we can add more. For example, in the practical thing of mapping the initiatives, we are using Google, for example. And sometimes we think like, okay, we are using Google. We don't know if someone can enter to the map and putting down the initiative that we are doing it. So maybe we can learn from other experiences of mapping initiatives, and also how you are doing it to face this backlash movement against women's rights in other parts of the world. So we want to be connected with the discussion that is happening in Europe, and we are so open to hear more about it and to learn from the experiences, and also to add value to the thing that you are doing it right now too.
Great. Yeah, and for sure we will make sure that the website and your email addresses are in the description of this podcast for any listeners as well to get in touch. And well, thank you so much, Magdalena. It's been a pleasure learning from you today, and thank you for your time and expertise.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much for the space.
Thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your network. Stay tuned for more episodes where we'll bring you conversations with leading experts in the field. Until next time, take care and stay informed.